Hello, dear viewers. You're about to watch the remastered and extended version of Elara's transformation into a wolf. You'll hear the story from the perspective of a villager whom Elara left covered in blood. Enjoy the show.
You may call me a liar. Everyone else does. But I am the man who lay beneath the Beast of Greywood and lived, and years later, her journal found its way into my hands. So believe me when I tell you how it truly began. With a woman named Elara, alone in her study, pressing a hand to her aching head. The potion she had brewed to sharpen her senses tasted wrong going down. She wrote one line that night before the pen fell from her fingers. "Something is happening to me." She had no idea. Her journal says the first sound was the worst, not the pain. The sound, a wet, splintering scrack from deep inside her own spine, like a tree bending in a storm. She doubled over her desk, and beneath the tearing fabric of her shirt, something was pushing its way out of her back. Ridges, fur, and that was only the beginning of the first hour. What do you do when a tail, thick and gray and very much alive, forces its way out of you and splits your jeans at the seam? Elara braced against her desk and begged the empty room to make it stop. The room did not answer. The tail kept growing, and somewhere under the pain, she noticed something that frightened her more than the agony. It felt natural. Her hands went next. She watched her own fingers stretch and crack, her nails darkening, curving, sharpening into hooked black claws, the hands of a predator wearing the sleeves of a scholar. Gray fur crawled up her forearms like a rising tide. She tried to write in the journal even then. The letters on that page looked like they were carved by an animal. They were... Have you ever seen a wolf's hind legs? Elara did, attached to her own body. Sitting in her chair, gripping her knees, she felt her ankles rise and her feet lengthen until they were no longer feet at all, until claws scraped grooves into the floorboards. "They're bending wrong," she wrote. Wrong for a woman, perfectly right for what she was becoming. The fur reached her belly by midnight. She clawed at her own shirt, watching the soft gray undercoat spread across her stomach, and for the first time she said it out loud to the empty room. This was not a sickness. This was a replacement. Something was unmaking her, inch by inch, and building something else in the vacancy. Then it reached her throat. Her journal entry for that moment is 4 words long, scratched deep enough to tear the paper. "I can't breathe." Her neck stretched, her collarbones shifted, the bones snapping and resetting like knuckles cracking in sequence. She thought she was dying. I have often wondered which would have been kinder. Her face. God help her, her face. The nose she'd had all her life pushed forward and turned black and wet. Her ears crackled upward through her hair into tall gray points. She could feel her own skull reorganizing, and she refused to look at the mirror across the room. "It's all wrong," she wrote. "I can't look." Eventually, of course, she looked. The mirror showed her a wolf, a white-muzzled, amber-eyed wolf with fangs, wearing the shreds of her favorite shirt, and when Elara opened her mouth to scream, the wolf opened its mouth too. "My face is gone," she whispered. And here is the detail that haunts me. She wrote that the creature in the mirror was beautiful, and that this was the most terrifying part of all. Somewhere past midnight, the last of her resistance broke. She dropped onto all fours amid the ruins of her clothes, threw her head back, and a sound left her throat that no human has ever made, a long, mournful, glass-rattling awoo that rolled out over the sleeping village. Old men still swear they heard it that night. I believe them. I've heard it up close. Her journal says the color drained out of the world and came back sharper and burning red. Her warm amber eyes ignited like coals, casting actual light across the study walls. Every scent in a mile suddenly had a shape. Every heartbeat in the forest had an address. The woman was still in there, screaming, but she was no longer driving. Strand by strand, Her copper-red hair, her mother's hair, she wrote, once turned white as frost. She watched the last of her old self bleach away in the reflection of a potion bottle. Red to white, woman to wolf. And then her stomach growled loud as thunder, and every other thought in her head went quiet. The last legible line in her journal before the empty pages begins mid-sentence and ends in a claw mark. I need to go hunting. I'm starved after that, nothing but torn paper. She went through the window, they say. She didn't bother opening it. Now this is where her pages fall silent and where my own eyes take over the telling, because that same night I was camping in Greywood with 5 friends. She told me much later what those first hours in the forest were like. Crouched in the moss under a dead black sky, nostrils flooded with 1,000-scent sap, rot, rabbit, deer, and beneath them all, one scent that made her jaws ache and her stomach twist like a wrung rag. Meat, cooking meat, our campfire, our supper, us. 2 words survived in her head by then, she said. 2 words, circling like crows, drowning out her own name, her own memories, her own horror. Hunt meat. Everything that was Elara had been shoved into a corner of her own skull, pounding on the glass, watching her body move through the trees toward the firelight. Toward us. And here's the part none of my friends ever knew, the part that still keeps me up at night. She stopped. Behind a great oak not 30 paces from our fire, the beast froze, and Elara clawed her way back into control for one desperate moment. People, I mustn't see them as prey. I can't control myself. She stood in the dark, at war with her own hunger, while we laughed and passed a bottle around the flames. We never saw the red glow between the branches. She lost the war. I want that understood. She fought, and she lost. And the last human thought she managed as her body broke into a sprint through the undergrowth was an apology. I'm so sorry. I have to do this. Have you ever been apologized to by something running at you on 4 legs at 40 miles an hour? I have. I just didn't hear it. At the fire, Merrick was mid-joke when the first branch snapped out in the dark. It's definitely a squirrel, he laughed. Then the second snap. Closer, heavier. Sarah stood up slowly, her hand over her mouth, staring into the tree line. What's that noise? She said. I remember thinking the forest had gone very, very quiet. Prey animals know, you see, and that night, we were the prey animals. The men formed up in front of the women. Old instinct. Useless instinct. Stay behind us, there's definitely something over there. Our guide shouted, grabbing a burning log. I stood with them, bottle still stupidly in my hand, scanning the black wall of trees. Snap. Crash. Whatever was coming wasn't circling anymore. It was done circling. She came over the fire, not around it, over it. A gray-white blur against the sky, mane streaming like a comet's tail, eyes leaving trails of red light, mouth open wide enough to fit a man's head. The roar hit us before she did. I felt it in my ribs like a drumbeat. 6 grown adults scattered like sparrows. All except me. I tripped. Then she was on me. Claws pinning my shoulders to the roots, fangs a hand's width from my face, strings of saliva glittering in the firelight, and that low rolling grr vibrating through my whole body. I looked into those burning red eyes, and I will swear this on any grave you choose. Something in there was looking back, something horrified, something pleading, something human. Her claws had already opened my chest. I carried the scars still, 4 white lines like a signature, when she suddenly went rigid above me. The red eyes flickered, and then the beast that was about to eat me threw back her head and screamed, not a roar, a scream, a woman's scream through a wolf's throat. What am I doing? I'm not in my right mind. I mustn't do this. Blood dripped from her fangs onto my cheek. My blood, and she stopped. She ran, sprang off me and tore into the forest, and through the ringing in my ears I heard her howl one last thing into the night. I must break this curse. This isn't me. My friends found me bleeding among the roots, babbling that the monster had spoken. They said it was shock. The village said it was a wild animal, but I knew what I'd heard, and God forgive me, I needed to find out what it meant. I tracked her for a week, found her trail at dawn on the riverbank, and stopped dead behind the reeds at what I saw. The beast knelt at the water's edge, washing my blood from her claws, weeping like a widow, and in the still water beneath her monstrous face, I saw her reflection. It wasn't a wolf. It was a red-haired young woman, looking up out of the river like a memory. "I will fix this," the beast whispered to her. I believed her. I don't know why, but I believed her. She led me unknowing back to a crooked house at the forest's edge. Back through her own broken window. Through the glass, I watched the beast hunch over a massive book, turning pages with claws that could open a bear, muttering, pleading with the paper. "There has to be a cure. Come on, come on." And then she froze. Her ears stood straight up. Her claw stopped on a page that glowed faintly gold. The rite of the blood moon. I've since seen that page myself. It's how I know the details. A silver flower called moon petal, drawn so lovingly it seems to shimmer. A circle of standing stones, a moon inked in dried red, and one line that explains everything she did next. Brew the moon petal under the blood moon, and face what the potion made of you. Beneath it, her clawed handwriting, pressed hard into the margin. 3 nights, or the beast takes me forever. 3 nights. I followed a hooded figure through the hills those 3 days, tail tucked, head down, moving like someone carrying a bomb inside her chest. From the ridge, she looked down on our village, where men I'd grown up with were gathering pitchforks and torches to hunt the thing that had attacked my camp. I watched her red eyes glow inside that hood as she watched them arm themselves. She didn't growl. She looked ashamed. At the forest's edge, she found one of the posters. Wanted, the Beast of Greywood, 500 gold. A crude charcoal nightmare of fangs and mad eyes, nothing like the creature I'd been shadowing. I watched her touch the drawing with one claw, ears flat against her skull, and heard her say, so quietly I nearly missed it, "That's how they see me. That's not who I am." A pause, then smaller. "Is it?" I nearly answered. Heaven help me, I nearly stepped out and answered. The moon petal grew where the recipe promised. One impossible silver bloom on a cliff ledge above the ravine, glowing like a fallen star. I watched from the tree line, heart in my throat, as she climbed the sheer rock in the wind, claws biting stone, the fattening moon dragging at her mind. I could see it. The way her eyes flared and her teeth ground with every cloud that passed. "Focus," she snarled at herself and reached, and the ledge crumbled, and she caught the flower as she fell. The hunters were waiting below. My neighbors, my friends. The silver chain net took her out of the air like a bird. She hit the ground shrieking, the metal sizzling where it touched her fur, and still she curled her whole body around that little silver flower to protect it. "Got her!" someone shouted in triumph. And then I heard her voice, the voice they all claimed didn't exist, crack across the clearing. "Please, not now. The ritual is tonight." What happened next made honest men into drunks. She tore that silver net apart with her bare burning hands, and then, with 3 loaded crossbows trained on her heart, she leapt over them, over their heads, harming no one. She landed beyond the torchlight with the flower in her teeth and vanished. And one of the hunters, a man who'd sworn to bring back her pelt, whispered into the silence, It spared us?" That was the moment I stopped following a monster and started following a woman. The blood moon rose that night like a wound in the sky, and everything below it turned the color of embers. I ran, actually ran, lungs burning, no torch, no weapon up the old hill where the standing stones have waited for 1,000 years, following the sound of her paws. I crested the ridge in time to see her small hunched silhouette sprinting on all fours into the ancient circle, racing her own heartbeat, racing the wolf rising inside her with the moon. By the time I reached the stones, the cauldron was already boiling. She dropped the moon petal into the brew, and a pillar of white light split the night, and in that light I saw how little of her was left. Hackles up, fangs bared at nothing. One hand gouging trenches in the dirt while the other ladled the shining liquid with a scholar's precision. "Drink it," she snarled to herself through gritted fangs. "Drink it before the wolf says no." She drank it, and she fell. What I tell you now, I did not see. No one saw it. But she described it to me afterward in such detail that I dream of it still. She fell inward into a black mirror floored nowhere lit by a giant crimson moon, and there, standing on her own reflection, was Elara, human, red-haired, fists clenched, and across from her, circling the wolf, enormous, white mane, wearing her collar. "You are weak," it thundered. "I kept us alive. I am you." And Elara answered, "No, you're only half of me." The recipe never said the cure was a battle. That was everyone's mistake, and hers for 3 long nights. The cure was the opposite. She told me she looked up at that mountain of fangs and fury and stepped forward and put her arms around its muzzle and pressed her forehead to its snout. "I'm done running from you," she whispered to the thing in her own chest. "We were never enemies. Come home." And above them both, the crimson moon began slowly to turn silver. What I saw from outside was this. The pillar of light turned from red to white, and inside it, the beast came apart like a dandelion in the wind, fur lifting away in glowing embers, claws receding into fingers I recognized as human, the great tail dissolving into sparks, and the white hair flooded from the roots with returning copper red like dawn pouring into a frozen river. She was screaming, and it took me a moment to understand the screaming was laughter. "It doesn't hurt this time," she cried to nobody. To everybody, "It feels like waking up." The sun rose on a woman. Just a woman barefoot in the dewy grass inside a ring of ancient stones, copper hair blazing in the gold morning light, hugging her own 2 human hands to her chest and laughing and sobbing in the same ragged breath. The spiked collar lay broken beside the cold cauldron. The setting moon, pale and ordinary and silver, watched from the far horizon. I stepped out from behind the stones at last, and she looked up at me, the man she'd nearly killed, and she said, "Human, I'm human, and then thank you, both of us." That was 11 years ago. Elara still lives in the crooked house at the forest's edge, the window long since repaired, and the Beast of Greywood was never seen again. The bounty expired. The posters rotted. The village invented safer stories. Last autumn, she finally gave me her journal and told me to write it all down, every part of it, because a tale that is never told is a wound that never closes. I visited her while I wrote it. She poured the tea with steady human hands. A single white streak in her red hair caught the lamplight, and out in the dark the moon rose full and silver over the trees, and nothing in that house rose with it. The curse is broken. The wolf sleeps. And Elara, scholar, survivor, master of her own shadow, smiled at me over her teacup and said the last words of this story. "Some doors only open once, Thomas. We closed it together."